Welcome back, and this is Morning Express on KTN News. Now, would like to talk about money. And talking about money, we would like to talk about the history of our money and the banking industry in Kenya today. This year, Central Bank of Kenya turns 50, or at least are marking their 50th anniversary. So what does that mean for a country like Kenya today? If you go back in time, you'd actually take a look at what CBK looked like 50 years ago, where it was then. Was it still, or is it still in the same place that it used to be right at the start? We're going to be showing you images of that. So during our conversation, you're going to be able to take a look at way back in time and the journey so far trodden, and where we are today, where we hope to be. So in studio with me, I've got 4 guests with me, and I will start with the ladies. To my extreme left, we've got Miriam Njuguna, who is a senior banking officer, the banking division at the Central Bank of Kenya. And right next to her, we've got Domitila Kirago, who is the bank officer, Bank Supervision Department at the Central Bank of Kenya. And we have Lois Wafula, who is the Assistant Director, Strategic Management at the Central Bank of Kenya, and John Biret, who is the Acting Director, Financial Market Department at the Central Bank of Kenya. Thank you all so much for joining us. Well, we're not here to talk about anything to do with the interest rates. This conversation is plainly about Central Bank of Kenya at 50. So all of us would like to know about the history of our money, how that has changed over time. And my guests in studio are going to be able to help us understand that. So Central Bank of Kenya is marking 50 years this year. Maybe you want to tell us about the history of Kenya's money and banking in general. I'll start with you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Central Bank of Kenya, prior to 1966, we had one currency board, which was responsible for issuing currency in the 3 East African countries, that is Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. In 1966, however, the governments of the respective countries saw it fit to oversight their own monetary authorities, and therefore the 3 countries established their own central banks with the responsibility now of, amongst other things, issuing the individual countries' currencies. The Central Bank of Kenya therefore came into being on September the 14th of 1966, and come next month we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. The events and leading up to that climax have already begun, and I think we will be sharing a few of those as we go forward. So this, in 1966, therefore, it took up the responsibility of issuing its own currency, and it has done so ever since. Of course, we have had, we have gone through phases of various, change of, the facial features of the currency, but the main responsibility of issuing currency has remained the same from the time now it took over in 1966 to date.
All right, and we've also seen a number of governors, taking leadership of the regulator since then. You might want to take us through that as well.
Yes. In 1966, when the bank, the Central Bank of Kenya was established, the first governor was one seconded from the IMF, International Monetary Fund, to assist in establishing the Central Bank of Kenya. And therefore, there was one named Baransky. He was from the IMF. After him, we had Governor Duncan Degwa, who took over and was the governor until, if I'm not wrong, I think 1982, towards the end of 1982. Philip Ndegwa took over from Duncan Degwa and was governor, and I think until 1988, when Eric Kotut took over. Kotut was the governor of Central Bank until 1993.
Yeah.
In 1993, Governor Mika Chesrem took over until 2001. Then we had Governor Nasha Nyaga, who took over and was governor until 2003, when Governor Andrew Mulay became the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Andrew Mulay handed over to Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who was governor until last year, March. The current governor took over in June 2015. He has a 4-year term, renewable, and that is it.
All right, fantastic. So that's a very rich history of Kenya's governors dating back in time. But let me bring in Lois Wafula. You know, from where you sit, I guess there are not many women in Kenya today who are in banking. But then again, there you go. You are with the CBK, just like Domitilla is and Miriam is. And would you say that women today are increasingly getting interested in financial markets and such like positions?
Yes, women are taking up serious senior positions in the central bank, for example, and in the financial markets in general. And we're encouraging, like, some of the activities we're doing for this CBK at 50 celebrations. We introduced what we're calling the first internship program. And you will be surprised, we took 9 candidates who came on board, and out of the 9 candidates, 5 are female. So we can see strides being made by women from a young age in the financial sector.
Okay, and what does this mean, you know, for a country like Kenya? You know, there's Africa Development Bank report that actually said Kenya was among the leading countries when it comes to women in positions of leadership. What do you have to say about those sentiments by the Africa Development Bank? Do you think Kenya is on the right track, is on the right path when it comes to financial inclusion and women?
I would say yes, we are on the right track, and I will talk about Central Bank. We have the first female governor, Ms. Sheila Mbijiwe. The Central Bank has previously had one deputy governor who acted as governor, but now we have a fully appointed female governor within the Central Bank, which is a first. If you look at the strides that have been made in the new constitution, where it talks about a third representation among the directors of Central Bank, we also have a number of women. We have at least 3 women who are directors of the Central Bank. So if you look at the strides, really, you can see some traction, women getting into positions within the financial sector and within Kenya as a whole.
All right. Domitilla Kiragu, you are in charge of, you know, you work with the Bank Supervision Department. And we know what has been going on, you know, the history of banking in the country today. But what does your role entail?
My day-to-day activities? Basically, we regulate the banking sector. That includes commercial banks, microfinance banks, credit reference bureaus, forex bureaus, and money remittance. So it's just to ensure that they comply with the regulations out there and that we have a stable financial system. All
right. Kenya has come a long way as well regarding supervision and financial obligations, you know, banks meeting their financial obligations. Where do you think we are today? Are we in a good space?
I think we're in a very good space, especially if you take into consideration financial inclusion. People in the rural areas now have agent banking, and we're trying to bring them into the formal sector. And that's why we have the music festival, where the kids were encouraged in the village to actually know what is our mandate and what as citizen, what they have, their rights.
Right. And talking about the music festival, you know, we've never seen this happen before. It's like, you know, everyone was like, why has CBK decided to now sponsor a music festival? Like, where was that all coming from? But financial literacy and the young people today, do you think the young people are interested in financial literacy?
I think they are, because most of the SMEs are youth. So to encourage them to know that they can what is required of them, the laws, the regulations. It is good for us to actually sponsor
Yeah.
the music festival and give them the financial literacy that they have. If I don't know if you got a chance to go and see the kids, we gave them a skeleton of what they could do,
Yeah.
and what they did was amazing. The presentations, they were very, very good.
All right. Do you think this is one way of taking care of the future? That, you know, when they start with that background of financial literacy, then at the end of the day, we're going to have more people, you know, interested in doing, you know, courses that are aligned towards finance.
Yes, I do think so, especially now that we've started the internship program. I'm sure that next year, even more people would apply. This year was 21,000. Next year, it's 50
21,000, and we had to zero down to how many?
to 9. So you can
Wow.
imagine how vigorous that exercise was.
Yeah.
To get 9 of the best out of 21,000, that's a lot of...
It is indeed. Miriam, you are a senior banking officer at in the banking division at the Central Bank of Kenya, and everyone would like to know, what does this role entail?
In banking, we are basically doing retail banking. We are connecting with the customers directly from the public. We are connecting with the commercial banks to a lesser extent. Yes.
All right. How would you assess retail banking in Kenya today from your department's perspective?
It is quite, I mean, it is quite, it's progressing very well. We are able to, I mean, with the retail banking, I'm able to connect with the customer direct. I'm able to connect with the various needs and the various requirements that are coming up every day from the various customers.
Okay. John, let me bring you in again. You know, we have seen our currencies go through some sort of transition, yeah? And we're even going to get to a time where we're not going to have our former presidents on our currencies, I guess, you know, with the new law. But tell us about our money. Where does it come from, and where is it going?
Where it's coming from and where it's going.
Yes, just the transition from the coins and the knots to where we are today.
Well, I'm not sure I understand your query very well in terms of where it is coming from.
Well, just taking us through the transition of what kind of currency we had back in the day and how that has come all the way, not exactly where we're taking the money.
Yes. Yes. If we look back, I think we will have an opportunity as we celebrate this 50 years of existence to showcase the monies that we have issued over time. From the time we were under the currency board to the time now when we started our first currency with the first president as the feature, I mean the facial feature on the currency. All the way to when we had the second president, and therefore the currency is also reflected that. But with the new constitution now, it requires us that the currency should not suddenly carry the face of, say, a president or any other person for that matter. In other words, they're trying to delink the association of a country's currency with the leadership of the country at the time. You can always get features that are, you know, prominent within the country and be able to show that. And we have seen those, I mean, quite countries who have adopted that. Many countries, of course, still carry, you know, the face of the leadership in their own currencies. But I think there are also an equal number of those who have moved from there. So, so therefore, this is where we have come from. Obviously, the next generation of our currency will have to comply with the new requirements of the constitution, and therefore, going forward, we will not be seeing, you know, the features of the president or past president on our currency.
Okay, so we're also going to have a museum being launched as well to take people through the history of Central Bank. What sort of information are people going to be able to get there?
Again, when you look at what normally the currency sort of carries, aside from the portrait of maybe the leadership, it has certain other features which helps one to identify and be able to say, okay, I know this feature, this has been picked from here and there. And therefore, by looking at that alone, whatever was being carried from the beginning, over time, again, one is able to say, maybe this is what was being the key area of emphasis, or it was thought that it was important to carry it on currency. And look where we have come from. This was initially what was in the original currency. We moved to this, and this is the current position, and it looks like, so it's also telling a story of itself in terms of the focus and in terms of developments in the various sectors of the economy.
Okay. Lois, we're going to be having that symposium that's coming, I think, in September. And it's focused majorly on, how exactly as, central banks we are doing. Where are these researchers, these bankers going to be coming from? Is it just locally or across the continent, across the world?
Okay, so we invited a number of guests. Some are international, from the UKs, from Europe, from America. We also have a number of governors from Africa. I think we've invited all the governors for most of the African countries. And we are hoping that they'll be able to come in and celebrate with us. Of course, we can't discount our regional, the East African community. Those, at least we know we have confirmations for the East African community governors. They will be attending. Locally, we have, we've invited academia from the University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University. We've also invited other economic, KIPRA, ARC, Financial Sector Deepening Trust. We expect their involvement in this symposium. Students, of course, central bankers. We can't leave out our staff. They will be there because they are also experts in their own right. So it's going to be an all-inclusive symposium that will target everybody.
All right. We are seeing the Central Bank of Kenya doing things that they've not done before. Now, we have a painting competition, and the Central Bank, in partnership with the Kenya Bankers Association, have sponsored an art competition for primary schools.
And high schools.
And high schools. One would actually say, why, why painting?
That's a very good question. I think it just continues the thread of focusing on the young people and nurturing talent within our various sectors. And you will notice this partnership is actually three-pronged. So we have the Kenya bankers who are sponsoring it. We have Central Bank that is, of course, celebrating and working with Kenya bankers. And we have the National Museums of Kenya. And the reason why we felt that this competition would be interesting was because we gave a theme to the children, to this from 6-year-old to 17-year-old, on what their understanding of the transition and the history of Kenya and the shilling and everything, and they're to come up with artifacts that will also be in the numismatic museum. But most importantly, it's also because the museum has a lot of traffic from young children, and they will be able to get that financial literacy and awareness of the role of central bank and how it impacts on the economy of Kenya.
All right.
Yes.
I'll come to you, Domitila. Do you think that the young people today are not interested in anything to do with the history of money?
No, I don't think so. I think the young people are very interested in learning from where we've come from and where we want to go. As you said, we are moving to cashless economy. Before we get there, we have a long way to go. So before we get there, we have to look behind from where we've come. So I think they're very interested. And in the painting competition over the weekend, we had a lot of students who came through to show their paintings.
Okay. And that in itself is testimony of the kind of interest that we are seeing coming in from the younger generation.
Yes.
All right. Let's also now talk about education. Before we get into the main day, which is the 50th anniversary, I'm sure that there's quite a lot of things that everyone is looking forward to knowing about the central bank. And I don't know if we can open up our lines for people to ask questions. By the way, you're not asking any questions about interest rates this time round. We are only focusing this conversation on CBK at 50. But feel free to ask whatever questions regarding Central Bank of Kenya's history and the development of the banking sector in the country today. Our panel of guests will be able to respond to that. But you know, Miriam, from your perspective, we are looking at a banking sector in Kenya today that is maybe having issues with financial, how do I put it, corporate governance. And I think from where you sit in retail banking, how do you think we are doing on that front?
I think we are. I think we are. The banking industry is ready. We are moving well, and I would say it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time before we can get to where we need to be. Yeah. Yeah, but could be my colleagues can also chip in.
Lois, what do you think about corporate governance?
I think we have to be cognizant that we've had some challenges, but I think what the new leadership is driving, the new leadership in Central Bank, is clearer accountability, further controls, and I think that's the right way to go. So that should tighten some of the challenges we've had.
All right.
But I think the challenges have been there, and we foresee a better future.
All right, John?
I think the challenge is to, obviously we have seen examples of, you know, not living up to the expectation, but that does not mean the industry is not well managed, and therefore the few weaknesses that have been identified, once addressed, obviously will give a more, you know, stable and more, you know, an industry that the public can trust.
Yeah. All right. So going forward, as we look forward to all these activities that are coming up, a lot of expectations as well are being given. But then let's for a moment also try to bring in the Kenyan people today. How receptive have they been to the different transitions of the banking industry and Central Bank as well as a regulator?
I think one of the reasons why we are here today is really to sort of breach that gap, because I think one of the challenges that I see is that the central bank is not well understood by the public, and this is therefore an opportunity for us to share who we are, to be able to respond to whatever queries that the members of the public are out there. And then the events now that we have already talked about, including the ones targeting the youth and what have you, is to be able to imprint on the young minds that there is an institution called Central Bank. It does this particular role. I think maybe I would want to work in an institution like that. Right. So that we actually, this is part of the process of, you know, telling the public who we are, and yes.
Some people think, you know, it's an out of this world thing. For you to work with the central bank, you must have been picked out of like 1 million people for you to even qualify to get to that level of even coming close to that place.
Well, we...
I think Domitella would actually be, because she actually seemed so interested in this one. So tell us about it, because you had 21,000 applications for internship.
Yes.
And you're only looking for 9 people. Just imagine that. How many more people missed out on this opportunity? But then, again, going back to the question, you know, people think it's like a 1 in a million chance to work with the CBK. Is that so?
No, I don't really think so. I think you just need to be consistent. If you really want to work at CBK, we have the website that we always keep uploading when there's job opportunities. So you just need to create your profile and keep updating it, you know? And when you come for the interview, be confident, and I'm sure you could get the job.
So confidence is what?
It's very key, yes.
Yeah, and then there's that myth that, you know, to work with the central bank, you probably should be having a PhD as a minimum qualification.
That's not true.
There's so many myths.
That's not true, because we also employ graduate officers so at entry level. So it's just what you've applied for. If you've applied for director and the qualification is PhD, then you won't get it, of course.
All right. There are a number of people asking questions. on social media, but I don't know if maybe I would just need to sift through some of them. Someone here is saying, you know, what do you think about, no, someone is actually asking, why haven't you released the new currencies to the market as per the new constitution? But I think on that front, the central bank governor said that it would be ready in 2017. So if you've been following the news, I'm sure you must be seeing some of those updates. But feel free to ask any other questions about the Central Bank of Kenya. And would also like to know how many staff are employed there. Is it like half of the population in this country? Or what is it about? Like, those are some of the questions that I'm seeing here on social media. So tell us about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I can pick that.
Yeah.
So the central bank currently has a staff complement of 1,480.
Yeah.
And of course, they cut across the various cadre, various qualifications. So there are departments that it is an advantage to have a PhD, or at least a master, like research. But then there are other departments where you actually, a bachelor's degree is sufficient. So looking at the staff complement in terms of the qualifications, then of course the central bank has various grades that require different competence levels and skills. So depending on the grade, the higher you go, probably the higher the qualifications that would be required. But really what I'm trying to say is there's no cutoff that says you can't work at the central bank because of ABCD. We actually take, we have opportunities for everybody.
So the CFAs and all that.
Yes.
What is the minimum qualification to work at the Central Bank of Kenya?
I think I'll take the internship program because that's something that I think is very, very exciting for us and for the financial sector as a whole. The objective of the central bank starting the internship program was to create a pool of ready job market young people who can be absorbed within the financial sector, but not specifically only within the financial sector, but within the Kenyan economy as a whole. And what we did was just to say you need to have a bachelor's degree. We didn't even specify to say upper second or first class like some organization, because we're looking for well-rounded young people who have just not academic qualifications, but other competencies and other experiences like social involvement, innovative practices or innovative ideas that you've come up with. So it was to say we know that there's a huge complement of staff in Kenya, and just looking at those people who are ready to work.
All right, so there have been some gaps that have been identified in the skills demands, you know, in the market today. We've seen some of the telecommunications companies saying, you know, they're not technicians in this country. The other day, the British Council was looking for a plumber, you know, and they said there are no plumbers in the country. There's actually a very minimal number of plumbers, and they said they had looked out, and by the time they put this you know, vacancy on their website, they had actually searched and searched and searched. So from CBK, where do you think, for people to be able to work with the Central Bank of Kenya, what sort of courses do they need to study? Do they need to get more into research? Do they need to get more into numbers? Do they need to be mathematicians? What exactly?
I think I would say all, in the sense that we have a spectrum of responsibilities and functions. We have a purely research economics department, which would therefore, you know, require economists, who are, you know, analysts. We have financial markets, which would require analysts, and the CFAs you have just mentioned. If, in certain areas, people specialized in debt management, people specialized in reserves management or fund management. We have departments that are responsible for currency issuance, banking, servicing, you know, government departments and other commercial banks in terms of their currency needs. And therefore, we of course we do have finance. Yes. We do have HR. Those, you know, those are we have a department that is responsible for services. So you see the skills that are required cut across.
It's
obviously, what takes preeminence is maybe the focus on, because of the mandate, the principal mandate of maintenance of price stability, and therefore it tends to take in economists
Right.
there, and yeah, that's
Okay, interesting. So if you want to know more about the Central Bank of Kenya, you can visit their website and find out more. They also have a very active Twitter handle that is, let me see, I just saw it just now. Yes, the Twitter handle is at CBK Kenya, and you'll be able to find out more about what they do. And Central Bank of Kenya is marking 50 years since its establishment, and you would like to know more, especially that museum. You do not want to miss out on knowing the history about your country. Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you.
John Birech, Acting Director, Financial Market Department at the Central Bank of Kenya, Lois Wafula, Assistant Director, Strategic Management at CBK, and Domitila Kiragu, Bank Officer, Bank Supervision Department, CBK, and finally Miriam Njuguna, who is the Senior Banking Officer for the Banking Division at the Central Bank of Kenya. Thank you all so much for educating us about the Central Bank of Kenya. I'm sure people still have so many questions, but we can't take them now. Thank you all for watching. Would like to take a few tweets regarding our question of the day, where we asked you whether or not you think the students who are facing arson charges should be allowed back into school. And so many of you actually have various views. The students are innocent until proven otherwise. They should be allowed back to school. And we also have one coming in from Mambani 881, who is saying yes, they should, because I don't think they will ever repeat the same mistake again. There's some of the views coming through, but thank you all so much for watching Money Express. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Have a blessed day. God bless you.